I know her to be a woman of God, a woman of integrity, a woman about business, but a woman who cares very deeply about our world and everyone in it, especially, particularly, those who do not have many to care for them. Her heart is as big as her smile. She takes care of kingdom business, and she takes care of her fellow human being. I want to introduce my friend, Reverend Noel Gray.
Those are the voices of my grandchildren. And I honor each of them. I honor Adonis and Yuri and Harper. Indeed, my circle of courage. This morning I want to talk to you. I prepared some notes and then I thought about it and I thought, no, that's really not what I want to do. So here's the little book. I'll put it here so you know I'm talking from my heart. I was given a theme to talk about, which is the theme of this gathering today, circle of courage. And when I think about the circle, I think about all of the tables that all of you sit at. And today you came into the room probably not thinking much about the people you're touching elbows with. But very few of us took the time to get the names of the people at the table with us. Unless you came together, unless you bought a table together. But the people on the outside that don't really know one another, this is how it begins. You get names, you make connections, you find like reasons, and believe me, even at your table with strangers you may not know, you have a like reason, a like passion to connect in a deeper way over eggs and bacon and fruit. On a Martin Luther King Day, I know some of us came to network, some of us came to hear beautiful pieces and hear wonderful music, to be reminded of the legacy of Dr. King. But what I want to compel you and inspire you to do is to do more than just the ordinary, more than just the mundane. The choir that sung talked about the courage, the power of one. It is an enormous and extreme power that moves us from where we are to where we must be. We have people in our own streets of our own city who are dying every day. I happen to be their pastor. We have church every Monday night in the streets of Oklahoma City. We've been invited into places to worship, but can you believe even in the invitation to worship, we are not allowed to use the toilets, to take care of common needs. One of the laws of our Bible, if you happen to be Christian, talks about hospitality. Even in the Jewish law, in Jewish tradition, in Jewish custom, when one would travel, what would they do? They'd stop when they came and they washed their feet. To show I understand, I embrace, I love you as a human being, and I'm going to honor that in a dignified way. And they would stop and wash their feet. To every legislator here, that everybody that writes laws here, to every council person, to everyone that doesn't cringe at the opportunity for nonviolent protest, we've got to do something about our city. Because when Jim Crow left, when segregated toilets left, when the water fountains that said black only left, so did the water fountains. So did the toilets. Somehow they have mysteriously disappeared. And so my people, the travelers that come and call me pastor, they tell me they've been thrown into jail because they were urinating outside because they had nowhere else to go. And then they're offenders. They're deemed offenders, and now they're put on a list and on a registry. so that they don't get to house next door to people and they don't get to live in certain radiuses of elementary schools and public places because they had to do what all human beings have to do. It's important that we have public toilets as a sign of hospitality in our city. We have wonderful things happening downtown. Most of it includes the migration of travelers outside to the west end of town. We're not blind. I only have a few minutes, and I want to share something with you that's very, very small. It's very, very trivial, but it's something that touched my heart. Years ago, I used to work for Head Start, and I was a Head Start teacher. I love that work. And when I was working, I found a book called Harold and the Purple Crayon. Harold was a little boy. If you read the story, he's kind of a silhouette of a kid. He's not even colored in with any color, which made him even more beautiful because he could have been Asian. He could have been Indian. He could have been biracial. But Harold is a little boy with a huge imagination. He was sent to bed, and instead of going to bed, he became bored with sleep. So he decided to create himself a world, and in it he had a purple crayon. I don't know what you hold in your hand. Only you do for sure. But this I know beyond a doubt, that you do hold something. So Harold takes his crayon and he draws for himself a path, a road to begin his travels. And then Harold moves from there because on his travels, he comes across some water, which all of us do, don't we? Our ancestors sung about it in a song, and it was called Wade in the Water. Wade in the water, children. God's gonna trouble the water. And in Harold's troubling water, Harold got a ship. He drew a ship with his purple crayon, and he got on the ship. My granny used to sing a song called "'Tis the Old Ship of Zion." Get on board, get on board. So Harold now is in his ship, and he's traveling through this little world that he creates. Paul Tillich is a theologian who moves in an existential way through systematic theology that helps us understand Christianity in our current culture. It makes it have meaning. It makes what we teach and preach relevant when I don't have food to eat, when my lights are cut off, when I'm going through an awful divorce, when I've got a master's degree but I can't get a job at McDonald's making French fries. I know this because I've lived this. And so Harold now, he navigates his boat, he finds dry land, and then he stops at the base of a hill, one that he has constructed. Harold realized that at the base of this hill, there is anger and there is fear. Anger and fear only captivate us and cause us not to move. It paralyzes us from moving forward. But if you take that and you put that into a circle that creates courage and resilience, you can rise above. But what happens when you have people at the base of the hill trying to get out? There can be hard resistance. So Harold now draws a mountain because he knows that he has to get out of this valley. But what happens when we, as a community, try to get out of the valley? Some of those valleys are in our families. Some of those are in our past, who we used to be, what we were before we saw a better way of living. Sometimes it looks like a felony or a DUI. And we can't find a way to crawl out because it's these systems and these things that are at the bottom of the valley that continue to pull us down. There's racism in the valley. There's injustice in the valley. And the valley is where our black men die, senseless death with no cause in the valley. So Harold now leaves the valley and he starts to make his climb to the top of the mountain. When Harold gets to the top of the mountain, he sees for himself clearly. Dr. King writes a speech about the mountaintop experience, and he says to us, I may not get there with you, but this one thing I know for sure, we will get to the promised land. We are not there yet. We're closer than we've ever been. We've made good strides. When I watched the movie Selma the other day, one thing that I took away from that was, if you notice, the first march it was a horrible, horrible course of events. And it's deemed now as Bloody Sunday. The final march, the very last march that Dr. King put together, which is a march that I want to do every day as I fight injustice, as I work to feed people on the streets, as I answer the cries of mothers that don't have enough food to make it from month to month, as I represent the working poor and serve meals every Monday night to families who are sheltered but don't have enough food to feed their children. What I want to do as a leader that leads people from where they are to where they need to be is to answer the call to what I hold in my own hand, to what you hold in your own hand. What are you holding? What are you holding? What do you have to give that you're not giving? What do you have to share that is being paralyzed by a spirit of fear? There's never a perfect time to move forward because there's always going to be something that could hinder you. I'm sure everybody in here that does anything worthwhile will tell you. There's always an ache, there's always a pain, there's always a crisis, there's always something. My challenge to you this morning, do what you can do. Take what is in your hand and use it to create good, to lift life. And you may be the voice of one, but you can be a mighty, powerful voice. You have children and grandchildren and friends and neighbors and partners and loved ones that are depending on your voice to speak on their behalf, to lift a level of consciousness. And it is not what we do at one time that makes us great. It is the consistent small things done every day in very small ways that transform us into who we are, into what the divine has called us to be. Amen.